So this morning, something happened here in Massachusetts, Martha's Vineyard. It seems that Ron DeSantis decided to send migrants from Florida to Martha's Vineyard, to Massachusetts, and say, hey, Governor Baker, you deal with them. Let's get into this story. I have so much to say. So much to say here. DeSantis claims credit for sending 2 planes carrying migrants to Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts. I kid you not, I couldn't make this up if I wanted to, you guys. 2 planes carrying migrants were sent to Florida. Governor Ron DeSantis to Martha's Vineyard two planes carrying migrants were sent by Florida. Governor Ron DeSantis to Martha's Vineyard on Wednesday night. His office said infuriating Democratic politicians and prompting a frenzied response that included humanitarian aid by locals and assistance by Massachusetts officials. And this is where I want to jump in here for just a second. I don't know if a lot of people are aware of this, but a lot of times people see Massachusetts as like this progressive state. Parts of Massachusetts can be somewhat progressive, but our Governor Charlie Baker, is actually Republican. So just wanted to put that out there. In the latest in a series of moves by Republican governors to transport migrants to northern liberal enclaves to protest what they say are inadequate federal efforts on southern border security. Located off the coast of Massachusetts and long known as a posh summer destination for wealthy vacationers, Martha's Vineyard provided an unusual and unexpected place for the migrants to be sent. I disagree with that. I think if you are trying to play politics, I think this is all for show, what Ron DeSantis is doing. I think if you're trying to send a message, you would send them to a Martha's Vineyard, because there's a lot of wealthy people that live in Martha's Vineyard, and they don't really want to deal with lower class people. You'd be surprised. And this is what I referred to before, is about liberals being okay with an issue and say that they support a cause, they support an issue, but they want it at arm's length. They don't want it in their backyard. They're NIMBYs. Not in my backyard. So I don't think that was an unusual location. I think he knew exactly what he was doing by sending them there. So here we go. Let's go on. We are not a sanctuary state, and it's better to be able to go to a sanctuary jurisdiction. And yes, we will help facilitate that transport for you to be able to go to greener pastures. Now, that's coming from Ron DeSantis. Every community in America should be sharing in the burdens. It shouldn't all fall on the handful of red states. Okay, now we're going to go to this video, because I told you guys, this is all for show. This is political chess. This is him making moves. And basically, this is his way of saying, let's see how these governors in these states that say they're sanctuary states, let's see how they handle it. U.S. politics is a joke. It really is. So let's listen to this clip here on CNN.
An immigration battle escalating near the vice president's doorstep. Buses of migrants sent from Texas dropped off just feet from her residence in Washington overnight. And this happening a day after officials on Martha's Vineyard were sent scrambling after dozens of migrants unexpectedly arrived there.
The office of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says it was he who sent 2 planes to the Massachusetts island with more than 50 migrants on board. You see a picture there. CNN Steve Contorno live in Washington. Steve, you have this happen at Martha's Vineyard. I saw a group of migrants dropped off in front of the vice president's residence here in D.C. this morning as well. What's happening?
Well, the governor of Florida has been promising for months, really, that he is going to do something about the migrants that he sees at the border. He's worried about them coming to the state of Florida. You know, there are so many migrant communities and communities from Latin America and South America already here. And he has been threatening for months, saying that if the Biden administration doesn't act on immigration, then he is going to send He's going to do what all these other Republican governors have done, like Governor Abbott in Texas, and start sending these people into Democratic strongholds and sanctuary cities. And that's what he says he is doing here. Now, we don't know a lot of the details about how these flights were arranged. The governor's office has only said that they helped pay for these flights through a program that set aside $12 million earlier this year just for this purpose.
Pause. That means he used taxpayer money. So he used taxpayer money to send them to different states. And it's kind of troubling that this commentator here just basically said, we don't know how they got on the planes. We don't know how this. Isn't that kind of scary and kind of concerning that here you had a politician who was just able to put people on planes and send them to different places and nobody seems to know how it happened? That's strange. I got to tell you something about Martha's Vineyard. Martha's Vineyard, it's an island, okay? It's part of Massachusetts, but it's an island. There's not a lot of people on Martha's Vineyard, especially when it's off season. How are you going to get off of Martha? How are you going to leave? How are you going to get off of Martha's Vineyard? They are on an island. It's not easy to get to, and it's not easy to leave. I'm just being honest here. I'm being honest with you. It is not easy to get to Martha's Vineyard. You got to drive your car to this port. You got to get on the ferry, get on the boat, go over there. It costs money to get your car on the boat and then to bring it to the island. And then people don't have private jets all the time to get over there. It's not easy to get there. Let me just make that clear.
But there's been already swift condemnation in Florida for these actions. Within hours of this coming to light, the Florida Democratic Party chairman, Manny Diaz, released a statement in which he said, quote, "There is nothing that DeSantis won't do and nobody that he won't hurt in order to score political points. He took dozens of families and children reportedly from Venezuela and Colombia away from everyone that they knew, flew them across the country, and left them by the side of the road without shelter or direction, all in order to score political points." And really leaving them with no one that they knew is exactly what happened. According to representatives on the ground, they had no idea that these people were going to show up. They basically have been setting up emergency shelters similar to what they would do if there was a hurricane to help these people and give them some temporary housing. We did hear from a volunteer last night who spoke a little bit about what they saw, and they had this to say.
I don't know how they found their way from the airport to Martha's Vineyard Community Services. It's a long walk. They're not near each other.
Told you.
They probably walked, I'm guessing they walked for 5 miles. We fed them and we've housed them for tonight. And in the morning, we'll figure out tomorrow.
Now, Jim, as you mentioned, we are watching closely what's happening outside of the Naval Observatory right now to see how this is unfolding today as well. And we'll probably have more updates for you later on that.
Wow.
Steve Cortona, thank you very much.
All right, joining us now for his reaction and what comes next, Democratic Congressman Bill Keating of the state of Massachusetts. Congressman, thanks for taking the time this morning.
Good morning, Jim.
So first, this is part of a pattern here, right? We've seen them taken to a number of blue states, blue cities. First, your reaction to these migrants being dropped off on Martha's Vineyard.
Well, I had a personal call yesterday afternoon from a Martha's Vineyard official. They were taken totally off guard. A private chartered plane, evidently there were 2, not cheap, was on the island, and probably 50, sending first plane 25, next plane.
A private chartered plane. A private chartered plane.
Maybe 25 people were there, and they didn't know what to do. Had no idea. And they reported to me that these people got off the plane, men, women, and children from Venezuela, as they told me, and they had a map or instructions in their hand where they would get housing and jobs. And it was a vacant parking lot, the destination. And we contacted our governor. In fact, Jim, this is interesting. This is a tale of 2 governors, 2 Republican governors. One who was using taxpayer money for chartered jets and reportedly his own video photographer to capture this for his own political benefit, taking advantage of women and children, men who didn't know where they were going. And another governor in Massachusetts that we contacted in his office who put his nose to the grindstone and had his agency spring into action, and along with local officials, deal with the manufacturing crisis.
By the way, Governor Charlie Baker here is not running for re-election. So just keep that in mind. He can basically do the bare minimum here in reference to this situation and kind of be in the clear because he's not trying to run again.
You should note the governor of Massachusetts, of course, currently a Republican. I want to ask about the law, but before I get there, just the immediate issue here. Can local resources support these migrants there, and how and for how long?
That's part of the cynical nature of this. Martha's Vineyard is a very small populated island. People commute from the land just to work there because there's no housing. So there's absolutely no resources to deal with this. But fortunately, religious community members and local officials and now state officials are springing into action to deal with it. So there was no ability to do it here. This wouldn't have been a destination simply to move them from one state to another. This was clearly just to attract political attention with an island that is known in the summertime for its wealthy visitors. But I've got to tell you this, that it backfired on him with the response of local officials.
Let me ask you this, though, because the way the current law stands, when you have folks come to the border, they apply for asylum, as they're waiting for their cases to be heard, adjudicated, they can't travel inside the U.S. and often do on their own. Does that law need to be changed?
Well, I think the whole system, obviously, Jim's broken, and we could deal with issues if we could ever get together, particularly on the Senate side of things. We're not even dealing with people who were taken here as children, the DACA children, the dreamers, who came here and gainfully employed or in the military or in school by definition. So really, instead of these stunts, I hope we can get some bipartisan and bicameral help to just deal with the problem and move the thing forward. Because, you know, using this issue as a political wedge evidently has worked for a while. In terms of politics, it's just not the way to treat human beings, and it's really not being responsible if you put your hand in the air and take an oath to help people.
An immigration back.
Let's jump in here for a second, because there's something I do want to say. I want to remind everybody that this is absolutely a part of Kamala Harris's job. She was assigned the task of handling the border situation. And in her recent interview, which I played for you guys, she said the border was secure. Does the border look secure to you? And I told you then she was lying. It doesn't matter if we've had a Democrat or Republican candidate. When it comes to immigration in this country, this situation has not been handled. It's not fixed. There are still kids in cages at the border. You saw what just happened with what Ron DeSantis just did. So people are still, they're getting to Florida. This situation has not been fixed. And I think it's always important to ask, why are they coming here to begin with? A lot of times people, they want to talk about illegal immigration, but they don't want to talk about the reason why they're coming here. Why would you flee your own country, risk your life to get here? You have to be in a desperate situation, right? Why do they have so much despair in the countries that they're coming from? Why do people have so much violence and despair in Venezuela? Because of the United States government. The countries where they are coming from, they are fleeing those countries because the countries have become so violent to the point where it's not safe necessarily just for them, but their own children. But who gave them the weapons? They didn't just appear. So you had U.S. government. They have been intervening these countries. They have been selling weapons to these countries. The people who were able to get the weapons have turned on the people who could not. And it has become a violent state. The U.S. government has to take some type of responsibility for that. You cannot just sit here and point fingers and say, oh my God, all of them are coming. Can't do that. You also can't sit here and say, oh, the border is secure. It's not. Can't do that, Kamala. When is the U.S. government going to stand up and take accountability for the destruction that they have caused in those countries? When? That's why they're coming here. The U.S. government destroys multiple countries abroad, and then they still expect the people to live in those countries and say, just live there, just deal with it. But don't try to come here. It's ridiculous. This is ridiculous. And it's embarrassing. 2022, and they still haven't fixed immigration in this country. Still, till this day.